The next topic I want to address is the question of regulating new technologies. AI, drones, on-demand, even sort of shared housing are stirring intense regulatory questions. A lot of times, the regulatory debates seem like they have too much mudslinging. They have unclear goals, and the question really occurs: how do we think through the intended outcomes of proposed regulation? How do we understand who the various constituencies are? And it turns out that there's been a really interesting experiment run by Colin Megill and his team. They have developed an AI-enabled process for intelligent consensus building. So Colin Megill is going to describe this for us, the work they did with Uber and the government of Taiwan, but also with how the process works in general for intelligent clustering of opinions via AI for better regulation. So please welcome Colin Megill of pol.is. Thank you, Colin.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Imagine for a moment that you get a phone call from a regulatory agency tomorrow morning. And they say, we're regulating a new technology. It's going to be about a year out. We're curious what your thoughts are. We're excited to know what articles you've read, what you think the goals should be, if you've had any experience with technology. So gathering citizen voices is really complicated. For the government to do that and talk to some thousands of people and get a high-dimensional portrait of what people think is difficult. It's expensive to do qualitative research. And obviously, the government cannot listen to everyone at once. But artificial intelligence can do that. Artificial intelligence can help us scale up what the government can take in. And that is what our company has been working on for the past couple of years now. We've been working on applying the tool chain of machine learning and artificial intelligence to the problems of participatory democracy to scale up the government's ability to listen to citizens. Listening is magic. To allow people to come into the policy process and know that the outputs of what they're saying are going to be integrated directly into the policymaking mechanisms is a transformative experience, and it transforms our willingness to participate if we know that what we're saying is going to be included. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like in fact, and what one instance of what it looks like is, because there are a number of ways in which this technology can be applied. Really, any group trying to coordinate behavior may in the future benefit from an artificial intelligence facilitation at the core of the group, which helps the group understand itself better and come to insights about whether people in it are in the majority or in the minority, things like that. So it starts, let's take a case that we're talking a lot about Uber. A new technology barnstorms into an economy, and the government reaches out to the citizens and says, what do you think? Just an open-ended question, what do you think? And people can submit statements, and that's the qualitative layer. And then there's a quantitative layer where people agree and disagree and pass on statements submitted by others. One way to think about this is it's like a survey that's created rather than by the agency. It's a survey that's created by people who are taking it. So the population itself creates dimensions on which they're scoring themselves. And this creates a matrix of every statement that's been submitted by every person who's participating. And that's not a very interesting data structure to humans. To have 200 comments by 6,000 people is not particularly interesting it's not particularly digestible, the number of permutations for humans. But the machine learning toolchain knows what to do with big matrices. And so we take that information and we create opinion groups. And we visualize camps and tribes and opinion groups. And there are a number of things you can do. You can just simply report that back in a more private way if you're on the enterprise side. But if you're in the participatory democracy side, one thing that you can do is you can visualize it. And so that's kind of our the core technology that we've been building to date. And so visualizing opinion groups is interesting because you can show someone how they fall relative to everyone else. So as people vote, they move around in a visualization towards people who voted like they did. And you can see the group on the left here thinks that UberX is creating unfair competition, and the group on the right disagrees. You can see the group on the left also thinks that UberX is not operating according to the law, so there are risks. Group on the right disagrees. Group on the right, on the other hand, thinks even if there's taxis in the street, I'm going to take an Uber. Group on the left disagrees. But here's the magic. The magic is that in the context of opinion groups, we can also show consensus. We can also show something that both of these groups agree on. And there's very little opportunity in our democracy or in our public dialogue to say to someone who's across the aisle, yeah, I deeply agree with you on that point. That's something that we should move forward in shared consensus. That's not something that's really emerging from our collective discussions, to put it lightly this week. I think, so here's something that everyone got behind, that regardless of what we do with Uber, that we should use this as an opportunity to improve quality across the board. That's a very interesting statement, an interesting qualitative statement that you might not get from just doing a survey, but you can get with AI by putting that out there, and it just turns out that everyone agreed that this is a great opportunity to improve quality across the board. Here's another statement that's interesting, which I think demonstrates how the government can benefit from doing more qualitative research than it does. Currently, the only way for traditional taxis to survive is to join a taxi fleet. This is not due to a government policy, and UberX has subverted this unwritten rule. I think it's quite awesome. That's not something you'd see in a survey. It's very different. The quality and feeling of that is very different, and its implications for what government might do or how they might approach it are different. Here's a consensus, kind of a meta statement. Regulation should progress with modern development. It's a very interesting consensus statement. This is from a real conversation that occurred at the national level in Taiwan and instructed the policy formation process in the Taiwanese government for Uber. Some thousands of people participated in this process, and it was kicked off by a progressively minded minister who was previously in the tech sector for IBM. And she thought, 3 to 5 years doesn't really work for companies that are VC funded and are trying to change and get into the market economics in a matter of months or years. Having 3 to 5 year regulatory lag isn't helping. And so she wanted to go faster. So she showed up to a hackathon, a lot of Google and Apple employees over there, and said, what could we do to have a platform to allow the entire society to engage in rational discussion? And so from that, vTaiwan was born, V for virtual, which is an online consultation platform to allow the entire country to participate in a meaningful way, in a binding consultative process that instructs the administration, the executive administration's policy-making process. So how does it work? So it starts with education. First, the ministry shares all the knowledge it has. It tells everybody what information is available to them, what other countries have done elsewhere. And then the pol.is conversation is sent out via Facebook advertising to make sure that it's distributed to the entire country. And it pulls people in from different parts of the social, it doesn't focus just in clicks or it goes to the whole graph, right? Goes through the whole graph, pulls in different people. And in this conversation, there were taxi drivers, there were Uber drivers, there were citizens, people from civil society that all participated together in one shared space. So there was an opportunity for them to interact with each other's statements rather than moving into kind of balkanized social media. So this was truly a national consultation. This is 2 years of our traffic on the left. Tens of thousands of people participated in the vTaiwan process on pol.is, and then you can see population density on the right there. This is something that's only possible online, and the opportunities for online democratic decision-making are at a very early stage globally. We're very lucky that a professor from Columbia named Liz Barry was in Taiwan and came home and spent some months writing up a case study that's made this a project in vTaiwan more visible to people around the world, and pilots are now emerging in Brazil and with civic tech community in Toronto, Australia, New Zealand, Madrid, and around the world. We're also talking with multiple US federal regulators about how to scale up their ability to listen to citizens. And interestingly, Jeremy Corbyn's Digital Democracy manifesto that was just released about how the UK can become do more online and democratize the party is also built on this, and we're in touch with their team and helping them shape policy around digital democracy. the road to better government runs through disaggregating the signals that we're sending government. Sending the government issues about how we think about Syria, how we think about Uber, and how we think about the future of Common Core in education on a binary presidential vote isn't helping. Moving the policy mechanism, moving the conversation down into the policy mechanism by allowing the government to listen better allows us to help fix our democracy. And it's an exciting time personally because it means that there's something we can do to improve our democracy from the tech side. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Colin. Pretty cool, huh?